Hello, everyone who can join us. My name is Dr. Karen or Doc Karen, and I'm from Empowering People with Invisible Chronic Illness Foundation, otherwise known as the EPIC Foundation. I am the founder and executive director, and today I am so happy to have my friend and an executive board member, Darryl Brown, with
Hey
Dates
there.
with Darryl. Hi, Darryl.
How are you? How are you? How are
I
you?
am well today. And look, if I seem hyped, it's because
I
I'm
can
so
feel it.
excited. I'm
I
so
can feel
excited.
it.
We haven't done this in a while.
It's been too long. We gotta keep going.
That's right. That's right. We have not done this in a while, and it's because of life circumstances. And what we talk about,
Yes.
interestingly enough, is life and how life
Yes.
lives. So,
Yes.
that's yeah, right? So that's the reason why we're
Hmm.
here today. Thank you for everyone who can join us today. And for those who, cannot join, hopefully this video will be shared. So, it's also shared on YouTube. So please subscribe to uh, our channel. Um, Comment if you do comment in here, it the comments do show up. If you're not subscribed to StreamYard, which is the platform that we're using, please indicate who you are because I think you have to subscribe in order for your name to come up. Otherwise, it will just say like Facebook user or commenter or something like that. So I won't necessarily know who you are. So please put your name down as you comment. And yeah, share it with as many people as you can because we're going to talk about some really important issues today. Is that right, Darryl?
Yes, ma'am.
All
I'm getting
right.
my
Okay.
paper as we speak,
All
so I can
right.
write down some
All
stuff.
right. Yeah, this is really important. Basically, the dates with Daryl, for those of you who have not joined a dates with Daryl in the past, we just talk about real life things that impact us, chronic illness warriors. And, these are things that we seldom talk about. Our niche at the Epic Foundation is we really want to talk about the psychological journey, the journey of living with illness or being a caregiver for a loved one with illness, and basically, how that impacts our lives. And these are things that are not talked about enough. So, Daryl and I really, we really get into the nitty gritty of what that looks like for us personally and how that might present in your lives as well. All right, so let's get into it. The five
I'm
stages of
ready.
loss. All right, so, let's start out by talking about the fact that, loss is an experience that we have when any change happens in our lives, any change at all. Um, this was reiterated for me when I did a bereavement class. My mother passed away almost 5 years ago, and I did a bereavement class at church, and it was done by a social worker, licensed clinical social worker. And she was talking about how any change in your life, whether it's negative or seemingly positive, even can create a sense of loss and can trigger the grieving process. And that includes like marriage, having a baby, a new position at work, just as much as losing a job, losing a loved one, etc. So any transition in your life can cause loss. And I want to ask you about, your thoughts about that, about how grief can show up during these times in our lives.
My own personal experience is I think sometimes when we're dealing with, especially the grieving part, I think there is a way to grieve.
Mhm.
Um, the and I always speak biblically. Bible talks about hope deferred maketh the heart sick, and sometimes in the middle of loss, in the middle of change, in the middle of disappointment, in the middle of just happenstance, it's important that we try to stay as focused as possible, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because at first, there is no stay focused. I think even sometimes when people think they're focused, they're really not as focused as they think they are. Because
Mhm.
nobody is superhuman. But I think what it is, it's not a matter of I'm learning. I'll even use my mother as an example when she passed, and that was back in the late '90s,
Mhm.
and she still crosses my mind from time to time,
Mhm.
a lot. And what I have learned to do is, as time goes on, I've learned you don't get over it, but you get better with it.
Mhm.
And so that's the important thing, is learning how to live through the grief of a loss, like you said, of a loved one, of a job. I remember when I lost my job, it took me, that was 2006.
Mhm.
I was married in 2003, 2006, nobody had a job.
Mhm.
This is 2023. I think I finally got to the conclusion that I'm not going to be working anymore in 2019,
Mhm.
2020, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
where it finally hit me that I'm like, okay, you got to get better.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, you end up this is what I've learned about long-term grief. It turns you into something that you don't want to be. And so again, it's important that we learn how to deal with things. Whether I talk all the time, I have people who I'm communicating with, um, who who and I think the problem is what people do is people try to find someone who understands,
Mhm.
but sometimes you can't find people who understand.
Mhm.
But I think what it is you just need people who try to at least not give sympathy, but empathy,
Mhm.
and try to understand as best as possible without doing damage. Because I
Mhm.
think sometimes, depending on who you go to, either they can be too far to the left or they be too far to the right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so that's where how I'm learning, especially when it's loss after loss after loss after loss after loss
Yeah.
after loss. And I'm like, okay, so when does this ever end?
Right. Right.
And sometimes, to be completely honest, sometimes it never does.
It feels like it never ends sometimes. That's right.
Yep, it never does. And so now the question is, I believe you have to ask yourself the question. And the question is, how do we deal with this?
Mhm.
As I call it, multitasking.
Mhm.
Um, because as you know, not only do we have to deal with the grief of a loved one and all that comes along with that, we have to deal with the grief of everyday life,
Mhm.
not just bills and stuff, but okay, you wake up, what's wrong now? You
Mhm.
know, I didn't feel this way yesterday, so what's going on today?
Right.
And that whole multitasking thing that you have to do sometimes and keep it together.
Right.
Um, again, I think for me, it encompasses all of the stages of of loss,
Yeah.
because you're trying your best to keep it together and you're thinking to yourself, if I lose one more thing, I just had this conversation with myself 2 days
Mhm.
ago, just 2 days ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, if one more thing happens,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
because again, we have to live
Mhm.
and we have to do stuff, and because of the fact that a lot of things are going on in life, you got to learn again how to deal with the loss of. I think it's really the impact of loss. How
Mhm.
do you deal with that? Okay, you lost something. Okay, so again, now the thing is, I got. Okay, so how do I deal with this?
Right.
How do I deal with this? And again, for me, it always goes back to a mindset.
Mhm.
It's a certain mindset that I try to keep. I try. That's important.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
try. I tell people all the time, take the pressure off. You're not perfect. You're gonna have days. Other day,
That's right.
I had a day just the other day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. And that's why we're acknowledging the stages of loss because I mean, you and I were just talking about even, people who are in the church, sometimes they will have a certain attitude towards, experiencing life. And, the message is often, if you have faith, then you won't experience these things. And that is not true.
That's not true.
That is not true at all. We all experience these things. And I love what you said, Daryl, about not getting past it. Because even I tell my clients all the time, we're not going to use that language. We're not going to say, oh, getting over it, rather, because that implies that there's something wrong with you, that you're not getting over something. But I often say, okay, we're going to work towards moving through it. And if you
Yes.
move through it, then you acknowledge the process that you experienced during the journey,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some of these five stages, and y'all let us know if this resonates with you, because this is true for all of us, but particularly as we talk about our experiences as chronic illness warriors, and then the caregiver experience as well. So I want to, definitely include our caregivers out there. Shout out to our spouses, right?
Absolutely.
Who hold us
Because
down.
yes, because they're a part of this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so just because they're not physically going through it, they still mentally have to deal with. Again, again the other day I was sitting there talking to my father, and I said,
Mhm.
you guys had to make decisions for me when I was younger,
Mhm.
and now here I am again, almost 60, having to make a lot of those same decisions. And what
Yeah.
was so cool was my wife slash caregiver was like, and guess what we're going to do? We're going to make the best decisions that we can. And for
Mhm.
that other individual going through it, I mean, that made me feel so much better.
Yeah.
That's why I think even in as we talk about the five stages, again, I always think one of the things that is paramount is being around the right people.
Mhm.
Got to be around the right people.
Yeah.
And you have to be brave enough to understand not everybody is the right person.
Right.
You
That's
got to be
true.
you got to know the difference.
Mhm. That's true.
You got to know the difference. Yep. You got to know the
Absolutely.
difference.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
definitely want to be
So,
around the right people. You definitely, want to make sure that you're surrounded by people who are, speaking life into your situation, who
yes.
are,
Not
you
death.
know, not death, correct? You'd be amazed how many people love drama, right? It's interesting.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
100%.
another
And I'm like,
topic right there.
nope, not doing it, not doing it. And that's why, like I say, I'm very mindful.
Yeah.
I was again having this conversation earlier today with a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I was having, I was having a moment,
Yeah.
and there was one person particular person that came to mind. So I called him, and sometimes you just want he didn't know what to say. He just kind of listened,
Yeah.
and it's like sometimes just getting it off of you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you said, again talking about the different signs, again denial. Because when I was uh, the other day with this whole Meniere's thing,
Yeah.
I'm and it's been 5 years since I've had it, and
Yeah.
I'm still sitting here like, are we really doing this for real?
Yeah.
I'm like halfway in denial. I'm like, this cannot be happening to me,
Yeah.
but it is.
It is. It's
But it
happening.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But by the
So
way, thank you, Lisa, for making your comments. We want to thank you so much for joining us.
yes, but but I do think, just for me, there are. I think when you get to the part of understanding this is really happening,
Right.
that part of it, I think, is getting past it. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
you got to you got to get over that part. Okay, this is really happening.
Right.
This is real life. So
Right.
now, what do we do?
Right. So it's interesting that you bring that up because well, let me just say the five stages of loss, it is not a linear process. I mean, you can
No.
definitely go from one stage to another. You can experience different stages at the same time. So it's more layered and complex than we think it is, right? But,
Yeah.
just for the sake of just sort of understanding the stages, we just kind of piece them apart, not to suggest that one comes directly after the other, but just for the sake of understanding. When you say like moving past it, what I think about is denial, right? Which is the
Yes.
first stage of loss that I learned about. And it's amazing. Some people say denial is a river in Egypt. They say that joke. Um, but denial is an actual behavior based on a thought that literally avoids reality.
Yep.
I mean, you deny what is actually there. And
Yep.
so when you say that, it makes me think of the fact that, yes, when we experience loss, and I'm going to talk about this within the context of having gone through chronic illnesses that took away certain things from me, created certain limitations. At one point, I was completely bedridden, couldn't even take myself to the bathroom. And you like really start asking yourself, is this really happening? This can't be happening. That's the denial part. There's no way it's not happening. This is not happening to me. So
Yep.
when you talk about moving past it, I think about that part where you're moving past it. But when you move past denial, as we'll talk about, you don't necessarily get to acceptance because there's other
No, you don't.
stages in the loss experience. So you can get past denial and then go into being angry because that's when you grasp the fact that, my God, this really is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And because when I say getting past it,
Yeah.
I'm talking about this is really happening.
Yeah.
And so, because like you said, and I've seen it happen to people, I did it for
Hmm.
the longest. I'm like, okay, I know I have spina bifida,
Yeah.
but I'm not your normal spina bifida person because I got a relationship with the Lord. So what's going to happen to other people? It'll never happen to me.
Yeah.
And I was there for the longest. And
Yeah.
guess what? Certain things started happening.
Yeah.
And it was all because of denial.
Yeah.
You couldn't blame it on the Lord or anything else. It was denial. This is what it is. So, because again, and I think what ends up happening is the longer you're in denial,
Hmm.
the longer you don't address stuff.
Right.
And it gets worse.
Hmm.
The symptoms get worse because you're not doing what it is you need to do
Right.
to make things better.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so I had to learn that. I had this things happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody. And so that's where, again, I had to kind of sort of, let me just say, kind of sort of get past it, because I think sometimes, depending on circumstances, you
Mhm.
can get past it and then you look up and you're right back where you started
Mhm.
because of, again, life challenges.
That's right.
Because you be finally say, okay, well, I'm finally past it, and then something else happens.
Mhm.
You go right back to denial, and it's just one continuous cycle. And
Right.
so, again, for me, I just try to I try to be very practical.
Mhm.
That's what I try to do. Doesn't work all the time, but I try to be practical
Mhm.
and understanding. Okay, this is what it is.
Mhm.
So now that I know what it is, what is my path forward
Right.
for this process that I need to go through so I can be better,
Mhm.
so I can be, so you can live in the same house with me.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the other day I was doing something, and my wife was trying to correct me the right way to do it,
Mhm.
and I snapped a little bit,
Mhm.
and it wasn't her. It
Mhm.
was, I had a doctor's appointment earlier that day. I got some information that I did not know pertaining to my situation, and
Mhm.
then other stuff that was going on, and it was just the wrong time, at the wrong person, at the wrong time. That's
Yeah.
all it was. That's really what it was,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so we've got to learn. I think just in life, um, you going through something, and so is the other person that you're dealing with. So we have to be
Right.
mindful of other people in their feelings. Just because you're going through
Mhm.
something, you know, you're in disbelief or denial right now.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, sometimes you just gotta be quiet and go sit down somewhere or something,
Right.
and again, get it, try to get it together. And if you
Mhm.
can't, just keep your mouth shut. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you don't offend
Absolutely.
nobody.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
like you said, a lot of this stuff can turn you into somebody. I you sit up there and wonder, who is this?
Mhm.
And you're talking about
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's it's something. That's
Yes.
all, that's, that's all I can say.
Absolutely.
Is
Absolutely.
this is something. It's like I think yeah,
Yeah.
it's something.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, yes, it affects us. And to your point, it affects, our loved ones as well. And so, we really um, try to make an effort to speak to our caregivers as well because, they are impacted and they go through loss with our journeys
Yes.
as well. Something that's unique about the chronic illness experience that you and I have talked about is the fact that it's chronic, keyword chronic. And
Yeah.
that's something else that we don't talk about. Like, as you talked about things like piling up and like these layers of things, like you sort of work through one thing and then something else pops up.
Yep.
And I think about how, and we have an article on our website, epictogether.org, that where we talk about basically chronic illness versus quote unquote normal illness, and more like acute illnesses, there's a certain pattern that happens. There's symptoms, like let's say you have the flu or something. There are symptoms, or a broken leg. There's symptoms, you get a you seek treatment or you seek a diagnosis, you receive an adequate diagnosis, you get treatment, there's a recovery period, and you return to baseline. Okay,
Yes.
that's your normal illness curve. Chronic illness doesn't look that way. It does not. And a lot of people, especially like people like even like if you get support from your church, from your community, loved ones, etc., they're looking for you to follow a pattern of acute illness. And so when things are starting to drag and it's just going on, and people started to wonder, like, wait a minute. Like, I remember after having brain surgery in 2011, after about a couple of months, even people were like, well, wait a minute, you had the brain surgery to cure the illness. What's going on? And what I realized is there were residual issues that happened just even as a result of the treatment. So not only was I dealing with recovery, but I was dealing with all these extra issues that came up as a result of treating the illness. And people got tired. They got tired. And you saw people start to kind of walk away. And the people who stuck around, like our spouses, stuck around and they stuck it out. But, my point is that chronic illness follows a completely different pattern. It's fluctuating,
Completely.
right?
It's completely different.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like I was telling my wife a story the other day.
Mhm.
Um, she's having surgery, as I told you, and I went with her to the orthopedist.
Mhm.
And so after consulting with her, telling what her path forward was, and like you were talking about chronic opposed to acute,
Yeah.
I basically asked him, could he take me on as a patient?
Mm.
Mm-mm, nope. And yes, I've heard it before, but it was like I told her, it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to continuously hear it over and over. And I'm like, you're at the
Yeah.
doctor where they're supposed to be able to fix stuff.
Yeah.
And then they tell you to your face, no, I can't fix you, you know?
Mhm.
And I found myself, I'm like, I had mixed emotions because I was so happy that my wife found her solution.
Yep.
And I spent half the day like, I just want to be fixed,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's and again it goes these different stages
Yep.
because there was a period of time I was really angry,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, because then you go through why me and
Mhm.
other kind of stuff, and then it's just you just go through all of that stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And so you just have to just kind of maneuver through it. Again, I don't. Is there an answer? I don't really think there's an answer. You just have to do the very best you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do within reason
Yeah. Yeah.
to not quit.
Right. Right.
'Cause that's the to me for me that's the ultimate objective.
Mhm.
How do I continue to continue?
Yeah.
Even though it's basically hearing, well, there is no continuation.
Mhm.
But I words to me make a difference.
Mhm.
Words make a difference. Again, who you interact with makes a difference. I was telling, I was getting some new braces made, and the person that I was talking to that makes the braces, the guy that usually did it for me, he
Mhm.
retired,
Mm.
but we were on the same page. And so I was talking to this new person that's gonna be making my braces. I
Mhm.
told her what my story was, and I told her we basically had to have a conversation about objectives.
Mm.
And my thing was, I understand what's going on with me. I
Mhm.
understand that 100%. But again, what is the path forward to try and help this situation. And again,
Mhm.
that's what I say. I think as we go through the stages, our vocabulary is very important.
Mhm.
Very important. Um, and when we got done speaking, I said, "Well, you're officially on my wellness team,
Mhm.
not my sick team, my wellness team,
Yeah.
because I don't know what the outcome is, but the objective is to be as well as possible.
Right.
That's the objective. And so um, that's why for me it's very important that the people that I deal with in terms of the medical side of this,
Mhm.
that we're all on the same page. Because if we're not all on the same page, I can't use you,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so, but I think again it goes back to just trying to be as positive as possible. And I'm not saying be in denial or be in disbelief in terms of, well, it's not going to happen. It's a very good possibility this could go the wrong way.
Mhm.
But how do we try our best to keep it from going in that direction? You know,
Yeah.
again, a path forward. We need a path forward. I think for
Yeah.
everything in life, we need a path forward.
Yeah.
I got a friend man. I owe him for that because he taught me this whole path forward thing.
Mhm.
Um, because again, life happens.
Mhm.
It's whether you're sick or not, life something's gonna happen that's gonna throw you off. Like
Yeah.
you're talking about the loss of a parent.
Mhm.
That will throw anybody off.
Right.
You know, I dread the day that my father leaves here. But the
Mhm.
question is, okay, so we know it's a possibility it's gonna happen if I don't leave here first, which is not the plan. So on that day, how do you deal with that? And
Mhm.
you won't know until you get there,
Right.
but you still gotta. I think you still kind of have to, okay, this is happening again. Like I said, okay, now this has happened. What do we do next?
Mhm.
You know, and
Yeah.
the long term grief is not the objective. The long term is finding ways to get through the grief
Mhm.
or work with the grief.
Right.
Yeah, like my mother died back in the 90s,
Mhm.
and it's still on my mind,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And in order to, you're speaking to moving forward, really just constantly being in forward movement. And when you talk about being your best self, I often will remind myself that my best self looks different on different days. Like my
uh,
best self today might not be my best self tomorrow. Right?
yes,
So
ma'am.
like today I might, I saw several clients, I was feeling pretty energetic, etc. There are days I can't even get out of the bed. And so what you tell yourself on those days, has to be a part of that mindset you're talking about, but which includes grace because, if you're beating yourself up because you can't get out of the bed, that doesn't get you anywhere. But to be able to tell yourself, okay, I'm just not able to do that today, but whatever I'm able to do within the capacity that I'm able to do it in, that's where I'm at.
That's it. That's it. I mean, again, with this upcoming surgery, life is going to be a little different.
Hmm.
So I already understanding because before I've been like, oh, I could do it. I could do it. No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing lately is these last since we found out this is a possibility, I have been trying to put things in place so
Hmm.
when it does happen, we are somewhat prepared.
Right.
Down to um, again, keeping the house together. It
Yep.
was always my job to make sure the house was together. Well, like you said, some days not so good.
Yeah.
So I hired somebody.
Hmm.
You know, uh, my wife yesterday was trying to show me how to do simple cooking things, which
Yeah.
we're gonna see how that goes. But you gotta try to again think ahead
Yeah.
because it's coming.
Right.
You can't wait until it gets here and then you start thinking about stuff.
Right.
You
Right.
got you got to be honest with yourself. Because again, I was honest with myself this time. I'm like, okay, you're not gonna be able to keep up.
Mhm.
What do you do? And so
Yeah.
those are some of the things that I've been trying to do in terms of getting ready for next week. And doesn't mean that everything is going to work out the way you want it to,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
you
And
got to be prepared. You got to have a plan.
that's right. And at the same time, what you're reminding me of is, the stage of loss that we call bargaining, where we kind of like are making deals in our head, like what if, and, kind of saying to ourselves, if I do this, then maybe this would be the outcome. Or if I hadn't have done this, then maybe I wouldn't be
Ah,
here. If I would have done this, and this, and even like, just with our faith, it's like, okay, maybe this is, how many times have I heard someone say, maybe this is a punishment, or this is, I'm reaping what I sowed, or,
I've heard
you
that so
know,
many times.
right. And the thing of it is, none of us deserves to be sick, period. You didn't
No,
bring this on yourself. It just
no,
happened.
yes.
And so when we bargain though, that's part of the stage of loss that we often don't talk about.
Doing that all the time.
Yeah.
All, I mean, all of the time.
Yeah.
I am. You know, I just am. You know, even like I used to waste money like crazy.
Mhm.
And then once time came for me to have a house and have all this other kind of stuff and just the everyday life stuff that
Yeah.
happens, DTE, lights, gas, all that kind of good
Mhm.
stuff. And I lost my job.
Yeah.
You know how long I bargained with myself about that? Well,
Mm.
if you had never done this and never done that, years later,
Yeah.
year, and to this day, if I fall short on something, I'm instantly thinking back to, well, if had you not done this and this and this and this and this and this,
Mhm.
but again, the question you have to ask, how long are you gonna do that for? How long are you gonna beat yourself up for?
Yeah.
The thing I've learned is it's not about the mistakes you may have made,
Mhm.
but it's about learning through what mistakes you made.
Mhm.
And did you change? Did you do something different? But if you're still doing the same stuff, now that's something I got different. But
Yeah.
did you learn anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm now I may need look when I come and see you in Chicago. I may need you to sit on the couch so we can talk about that because I'm bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm horrible at that. I am.
I
I'm
hear you.
always blaming myself by everything.
Yeah. I hear
Even
you.
with the chronic illness thing. Well, if
Yeah.
this had never happened to me, then I would
Yep.
and then something in the house goes wrong that I can't do as a man. Well, see, if you weren't handicapped, then
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
do it all. I'm still doing it.
Still do it. Yeah.
Still doing it.
Yeah.
And so instead of staying there though, I'm like, nope. It was something just as simple. Um, because of gout, my hands are not the way they need to be.
Mhm.
So my wife was trying to show me how to cut up a pineapple.
Mhm.
And because my hands are the way they are, I had to hold the knife a certain way.
Mhm.
And it took me a lot longer to cut that pineapple. And she never knew it, but I'm sitting to myself, don't you do this. I'm starting to bargain in my head. Well, if this had never happened and that never happened,
Mhm.
And I'm like, dude, did you ask to have gout? No.
Right.
So guess what you do? You cut this stupid thing the best way you know how, as close to what
Yeah.
she's showing you as you. But I'm starting to go. I'm starting to get on an emotional roller coaster over a stupid
Mhm.
pineapple. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
that's why I say you gotta learn how to. You gotta work through stuff. You
Yeah.
just can't stay there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's important. you know but
It is.
acknowledging the feeling, acknowledging, even you acknowledging that you go through it, because it's a lifelong thing. And that's the thing about living with this stuff, is that the curve
I'm
looks
almost.
different. It's fluctuating. You have your ups, you have your
Yeah,
downs.
yeah. I'm almost 60, and I'm still on that roller coaster.
Right.
But
Right.
like I said, sometimes it just is what it is. And that's what I
Yeah.
say. I think once you start accepting this is what the situation is, that's what I said. Then you can start talking about how to handle it better
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like again,
Yeah.
yeah, I have my days, but everybody doesn't need to know I'm having a day right now. They don't need to know that.
Hmm.
So only certain people.
Right.
Like I
Certain
said, I had
people
somebody just tell me
you
last
keep
week.
close.
He was like,
Yeah.
"I didn't think you got down." I'm like, "Yeah, I
Right.
do," but everybody doesn't need to know that, because then next thing you know, you are repeating the stuff because it's starting to feel sorry for you, and then why is this
Mhm.
happening to you? And then you got to replay the whole thing all over again.
Right,
You know?
right, right, right. And to that point, Daryl, when you're in this space, which is another stage, depression, you start to isolate,
Mm,
and sometimes you just say to yourself, and we always encourage people. This happened during COVID, right? Like everyone was physically distancing. And, I was doing videos on making the distinction between social distancing, which is, the
mm.
physical distancing part versus like actually like, um, isolating and keeping yourself from people. And that was, something that was very destructive for a lot of people.
Yes,
But it is a
it was.
stage, and to your point, keeping people close to you when you're in that, you can't have everybody around you. You can't. And you can't necessarily disclose that to everyone, right? Because like people ask you all the time, how you doing today? Some people really don't want to know, you know. How many people out there can say like amen to that? Some people just really, 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 really do not want to
Now they don't
um
want to know, and then when you tell them the truth, how helpful are they
right.
towards your getting better? You
Yep.
know, and
Yep.
uh, so that's I'm okay. For most people, I'm doing great. Yeah, I could have the worst day ever, but
Yeah.
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking to?
Yeah.
One person I'm doing great, and then another person I'd be like, you know what? Today this is a little bit too much for me. But
Yep.
you got to know again who you're talking to,
That's right.
because like
That's right.
what's that misery loves company.
Yep. Yep. That so true. That is so true.
And
That
you
is so
start
true. You
talking about
can't
how
let
you
everyone
feeling, next thing
in.
you know, no, you'll be ready to jump off a
Mm-mm.
building, because
Right.
of the negativity.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
I said, my goal is, even though I know it's chronic, my
Hmm.
goal is, again, how do I live as peaceably as I can, as I call it, with this foolishness?
Right.
How do I do that? How do I do that? How do I live? And like you just said, how do I live and not alienate everybody? How do I
Hmm.
live and not have you around just because you feel obligated to be with me because you feel sorry
Right.
for me? You know
Right.
what I mean? You want people
Yeah,
around you who generally want to be there.
that's
And
right.
so that's the type of environment I try to foster is if you're around me, I want you to be around me because you want to be around me and
Right.
not because I need
Right.
help, you know?
Right. 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 And at the same time, remaining cognizant of the fact that sometimes when we're in this space, and really with any of the stages, but particularly depression, and we feel like isolating, we can also push people away who we should keep in our circle. And,
Mhm.
that includes our loved one, our spouses, our caregivers.
Yep,
How often do we push them away because we feel feelings of guilt or shame, internal shame around being sick, an
yep.
internal blame around being sick. And what we do is we project and we're like, "Oh, no, you really don't wanna take care of me. You really don't wanna be with me. Why would you wanna be with a person like me?" This is all the internal dialogue
Wow.
that goes, along with this. And then now we're pushing that person away. And you and I have both been married for a long time, right? I mean, we've been with our spouses for a long, long time. I was telling my husband a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday or today, who knows? But we've been together for 24 years, been married for almost 22 years. So I mean, it's like you've seen all of my changes over that 22-year marriage. And um but yet still there are times where I will push him away because of this internal dialogue that's going on in my head where I'm
Yep,
just feeling so bad about
yep,
myself.
yep. I think I, I don't know about your husband, but it sounds like he, like my wife. I have a tendency to do the same thing from time to time,
Hmm.
but I'm glad she ignores me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, okay, he'll get over it
Right.
eventually, and when he gets
Yeah.
over it, then we can have a conversation.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Yeah.
you need that. You need that. Sometimes you
Yeah.
need that sternness or that just whatever. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Opposed to, oh, you poor thing,
Hmm.
or like you said, you have a. We can sometimes you can sometimes push away a person who actually wants to be there.
Right. Right. They want to be there.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
making their life so miserable.
Right.
Why would they want to be there?
Right.
You know,
I have to laugh. I have to laugh because it's so true. I mean,
yeah. They wanted to be there with you, but you made their life a living hell. So guess what
right.
they did? You wanted them to leave. They left. Now what?
Right. Right. Right.
Now,
Right.
now you literally have people who are on the clock,
Yeah.
who only because when you talk about a caregiver, and we call our spouses caregivers,
Hmm.
but I'm talking about the caregivers who are literally on the clock now,
Right. Right.
who
That's
are
right.
only doing this because they get a paycheck.
Right. That's
You don't
right.
want that. You don't want that. And so that's why I said trying to be as positive as possible and working through all of the grief, all of the depression. I mean, I think one of the best ways to deal with depression, and I never thought I would ever say this, is admitting to the fact you're depressed.
Hmm.
It goes back to that whole denial thing.
Right.
There's a problem. Like I said, I was filling out some paperwork for this Meniere's stuff, and they asked a question. I've answered this question a zillion times over the years
Hmm.
pertaining to spina bifida. But the question was asked, does this make you depressed from time to time? And I finally had to say yes,
Hmm.
because it does. Because
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here like, I can't hear that well. Are you kidding me?
Hmm.
I could just be sitting, and all of a sudden, the room just goes crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think anybody would. And you ought
Yeah.
not be embarrassed about the fact that it's getting you like that. Be
Right.
honest. Be
Right.
honest.
Right, be honest. Be honest with yourself, and it's okay.
It is.
It's okay. It's
Well, they
okay.
say it's okay not to be okay.
Right. It's okay not to be okay.
Because I don't
It
care who you are,
happens.
everybody's not okay all the time. They're
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
I
all
mean,
right.
there are certain circles that we might belong to. I mean, within a cultural context, within a spiritual context, things like that, where we're taught that we're not taught that it's okay to not be okay, right? I mean,
Mm,
I grew up um, kind of feeling like, or being taught that you just don't talk about your feelings, unless it's all happy stuff. If it's happy stuff, then we talk about it. If it's
mhm.
not happy stuff, we sweep it under the rug.
Yep,
And so you learn to really suppress how you feel. And, you know, um, that that doesn't feel that great.
it
But
doesn't, but you got again, with people that you everybody is not equipped to handle this.
right.
So when you have people in your surroundings who are not equipped to handle it, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not their
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have they don't have to be put in timeout because they can't handle your stuff. They just can't handle it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
definitely. 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 So, I mean, this has been a really lively discussion, but we can't end without talking about acceptance. And the thing I want to say about acceptance, I call it radical acceptance. And I want to make
mhm,
a distinction here. I want to make this very clear that when we talk about radical acceptance of where you're at, the things that are happening in your life, it is not saying that you're happy about everything that's going on. See, that's the mistake that people make. They think, oh, if I
nah,
say that I'm in radical acceptance or that I'm accepting this, then I'm saying that I am like co signing what's going on and I'm okay with it. Not at all. It's
not even
not what you're
close.
saying. Because why would you be okay with, things just sort of piling up and, like we talked about at the beginning of this whole thing, feeling like it's never ending? You're not going to be okay with it. But
No,
acceptance is accepting what is. And, when people say it is what it is, it kind of gets on my nerves sometimes when people say that because sometimes people say it out of context. But, just saying that you're accepting what
yes,
is something that you were talking about earlier, where, like, once you've gone past denial, once you've sort of gone through those other stages, that now you are in a practical mode and you're saying,
mhm,
okay, now what do I have to do? You're putting your armor on and you're saying, what
yep,
do I have to do to live life? You're putting the right doctors on your medical team. You're keeping people in your circle who will help support you. You're deciding, you're making decisions,
yes,
real life
yeah,
decisions
yeah,
about your life, and you're accepting that, okay, this is what I have to do to live
yep,
my best
exactly,
life, right?
yep. I talked about that. See, for a second, I thought I was about to go for a little trip, um, with the whole spitting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I talked about it is what it is one time at my church,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what I was saying. I'm not saying, well, get over it, you'll be okay, just don't. That's not all I was. Okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Again, going back to, okay, so now how do I effectively deal with this stuff? Because
Mhm.
again, I used to hear it all the time. Well, just pray it goes away.
Mhm.
Well, everything doesn't go away.
Right.
I wish it did.
Yeah, that'd be
But
good.
sometimes what we have to understand is, again, I've said this before, that first of all, if it happens, I believe that we have what it takes to deal with it first.
Mhm.
Secondly, if you pray that it goes away, If it does not happen the way you want it to, what that means is you have been given the grace to deal with whatever it is you got to go through.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just believe that. I believe that. And again, I think scripture bears this out to be true. But I think the reason why um, I've I've been taught how to do a whole lot of stuff. But as went on, just the experience of it, I've been learning to deal with stuff. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
so, uh, but again, at the end of the day, I just believe that whatever it's going to be is going to be. And if, let's just say, by some slight chance, I pray, because I tell people all the time, I don't have any room for anything else. I'm at
Yeah.
capacity. I don't have no room for nothing.
Yeah.
But let's just say, if it does, I believe that just like I'm handling all this other stuff, I'll be able to handle that too.
That's right.
But it'll take time to get there, though. I'm not
Right.
saying, if something happens tomorrow, well, the same day, I'm going. No, we need to. What is it? Acceptance. I mean, denial
Yeah.
first. I'm gonna go
Yep.
through all of them. I'm going through all of them
Right.
before I
Right.
get to the point where
Exactly.
we're like, okay, now we got to deal with this. But we're gonna go through some depression. You're gonna go
Yeah.
through stuff like that.
Right.
And if you don't, what is your secret?
Right.
You know,
Because we gotta go through it.
yeah,
That is so
Googling
true.
you.
Right. Right. We're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it. You
Yeah,
know,
stuff
I'm so glad
stuff's
that
gonna
we're having
happen.
this conversation because a lot of people feel, you know, I've had so many people say to me that they feel like they've had to hide, their feelings about the process that they go through on the psychological journey. And it is a journey.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I think I spend so much time listening to other people too, because they're always
Mhm.
telling, we're always talking about things that's going on or whatever. And
Yeah.
like I said, I've just learned you got to talk,
Yeah.
because if you don't, it will consume you. So get you a
Yes.
therapist, get you a friend, a
Yep.
pastor, whoever you need to talk to, and not only
Yes.
talk, but you got to be able to have somebody who you can be real with,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, that
Absolutely.
however you're feeling, and I be
Absolutely.
sorry to say, but however you gotta say it,
Yep.
they have to be strong enough to accept. Okay, you just said something wrong, but you're saying it because you got to they're angry at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm
Absolutely.
telling you, for the longest, I'm like, for real, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm not understanding this.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Absolutely.
still in, I'm not understanding this.
Yes.
Today
Yes.
right now at whatever time it is, 7:30, I'm still stuck on, I'm really not understanding this.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're right, Daryl. I mean, we should, definitely end on that note, which is definitely talk to someone. And that's what the Epic Foundation is all about, right?
Yep,
I mean, we've created a space for people to gain support. And really, that's all. There's no magic to this thing, There's so many organizations out there, God bless them, that have a wealth of medical knowledge and different things like that. Our whole goal is to really help you to not feel alone.
yep,
At the end of the day, as you're going through loss, as you're going through these experiences, we want you to feel like you have us here, even though we're not physically there. But you still have us, right?
yep, yep. It was so funny the other day. My wife going through her rotator cuff injury, and I've had
Yeah.
it. It's very painful,
Yeah.
and she was not having such a good day that day. And I said to her later on, I said, "Do you realize on the day that you're not feeling well, I said, you prayed for 3 different individuals individuals,
Mm.
three of them. And I was like, bless your heart,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
But it's important that we have somebody there. And again,
Yeah.
that individual does not have to understand. They don't have to
Right.
just
Right,
just
absolutely.
because I thought about this the other day because we often say, well, you don't understand what I'm going through, so you don't know what you're talking about. You know who
Mhm.
taught me how to be handicapped? My mother and my father. And
Mm.
neither one of them were handicapped, but they taught me
Mhm.
they're the base on where I come from in terms of how I deal with this stuff that they taught me as a
Mhm.
kid. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so just you don't I don't I have never experienced the things that you've experienced.
Mhm.
I never have. But just to be able to listen to you actually encourage
Yeah.
me a lot. You really do. You encourage me a lot. And just that whole thing. Sometimes we
Yeah.
just you and I have different circumstances, but listening to
Right.
your story and stuff, I'm like, it, some of it is if she can do this, I can too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
instead of just quitting, just
Yeah.
that is not the answer. That's
No,
not
it's
the
not an
answer.
option.
That's
Quitting
not
is
the
not an
answer.
option.
No.
Yeah.
How do you know that you won't make it to the next day unless you see the next day? Some
Right.
people stop short of their potential
Mhm.
because of what they think is coming.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not jumping off no buildings. We're not killing ourselves. And I used to hate living. I love living now. Even with all this foolishness, I still love it.
Mhm.
I'm not having such a great time right now, but I'm
Yeah.
learning to you learn to adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And this is part of it. Acknowledging, moving through, and accepting the support that you need. So,
And we
yeah,
all
this
need
has
it.
been
Nobody's living
absolutely.
on an island.
That's right.
We
We
all need
all
it.
need it. We all need it.
Everybody needs
Yes.
everybody.
W Absolutely. Daryl, it was great having this conversation. An hour flies by when you're having fun, right?
It does. I'm looking at the time. I'm like,
Look,
I could
I'm
do this
like,
for months.
"Look, you know, if we don't do nothing else, we know how to talk."
That's it. That's it.
So,
Yeah.
right. We know how to have a good time. We know how to talk. Thank you for joining me. We definitely gonna have another dates with Daryl in the future.
Thank you for the
Thank you to
opportunity.
everyone who joined us. Absolutely. Um, if you are a person living with chronic illness, please do feel free to comment on this video. And to our caregivers out there, please also comment and share with us because this video will be available on YouTube
Mm.
for the future for anybody who wants to watch it. So, yeah, as a caregiver as well, please leave a comment about how you also experience the 5 stages of loss so we can learn from it. And, because together we are epic. So, I'm just so
Epic.
grateful. And I'm grateful to all of you out there. And we will definitely see you soon. So, see you
Alrighty.
later. Together we're epic. Thank
Thank
you.